So now you have these two very pernicious trends. On the one hand, to glorify overt racism in the laws, anti-racism, and on the other, an attempt to try and criminalize people's speech by linking them to people who go and commit violence in the name of their views. And it culminates in an incredibly dangerous new law that is now being proposed by a very mainstream member of the Democratic Party in the House, Sheila Jackson Lee. She's not part of the squad. She's in the House Progressive Caucus, the Black Congressional Caucus, but she's by no means an outlier in the Democratic Party. She's a very kind of standard mainstream Democrat. She's been there forever. She votes the way leadership tells her to. She's never off key in any way. And she has this bill that she just proposed this week. The title of it is H.R. 61, Leading Against White Supremacy Act of 2023, and it's now been referred to the House Judiciary Committee for action. And I want to show you what this bill does, because to say that it's chilling and dangerous is to severely understate the case. And while it's unlikely, to put it mildly, this bill will see a House floor vote in the next 2 years now that House Republicans control the Congress, it very well could easily change. But it also reflects where the Democratic Party is when it comes to issues of both racism and free speech. So I really want to show you what this bill does, given how pernicious it is. And it's a bill that is now pending in the Congress. The purported purpose of this bill is, quote, to prevent and prosecute white supremacy-inspired hate crime and conspiracy to commit white supremacy-inspired hate crime, and to amend Title 18 United States Code to expand the scope of hate crimes. Now, notice, hate crimes are already illegal. If you go into a grocery store in Buffalo with the intention of murdering African Americans, or a church in Charleston, or a gay bar with the intention to kill LGBTs, you are already committing crimes under the federal statute, including hate crimes. That is already criminalized. You don't need a bill to do that. What this seeks to do is expand how you become guilty of hate crimes. Specifically, you don't have to any longer be the one to pull the trigger. All you have to have done is express a view that the government can assert not only did inspire someone to commit a hate crime, but even if they didn't do it, had the potential to do it. And if you don't believe that, if you think that I'm exaggerating here, look at what this bill says. Here's Section 2. It's entitled White Supremacy-Inspired Hate Crime. Quote, A, in general, a person engages in a white supremacy-inspired hate crime. This is a new crime. A white supremacy-inspired hate crime when white supremacy ideology has motivated the planning, development, preparation, or perpetration of actions that constituted a crime or were undertaken in furtherance of activity that, if effectuated, would have constituted a crime. So now listen to this. You don't actually need a crime in order to have a hate crime. It just has to be somebody who has begun planning, developing, or preparing actions that, had they been carried out, would have constituted a hate crime. And you've now become part of, here it is in B, a conspirator in this crime. You become part of a conspiracy to engage in this new crime, white supremacy-inspired hate crime. It says, a conspiracy to engage in white supremacy hate crime shall be determined to exist between two or more persons engaged in the planning, preparation, or perpetration of a white supremacy-inspired hate crime. That makes sense. If you and someone else are planning to go murder black people or gay people or Asian people, and you go and buy guns and set out on the plan, that makes sense. That's now a conspiracy. But here's how else you can become a conspirator in hate crimes. That's number one, two people who are actually doing the planning. Number two, between two or more persons, A, at least one of whom engaged in the planning, development, and preparation. So you need a person who's doing the planning. And then B, at least one of whom published materials advancing white supremacy, white supremacist ideology, antagonism based on replacement theory, or hate speech that vilifies or is otherwise directed against any non-white person or group, and such published material was published on a social media platform or by other means of publication with the likelihood that it would be viewed by persons who are predisposed to engage in a hate crime, or could, as determined by a reasonable person, motivate actions by a person predisposed to engaging in white supremacy hate crime. Or 3, was read, heard, or viewed by a person who engaged in the development, planning, preparation, or perpetration of a white supremacy-inspired hate crime. In other words, if you go onto Twitter and you express a view that Barbara Lee or whoever is or Sheila Jackson Lee or whoever is deciding considers your view to be racist or white supremacist, even if somebody doesn't hear you and then goes and commits a crime, even if that doesn't happen, you are a conspirator in a hate crime as long as it was reasonably likely that somebody who might commit a hate crime heard you or heard your views. Now, where wouldn't that be true? It's always the case that any ideology or any viewpoint that you express has the potential to be heard by somebody who could, in the name of that ideology, go and commit crimes. I'm vegan. I advocate for veganism. I try not to be annoying about it or preachy about it. But the reason I'm vegan is because I believe the factory farming industry commits gratuitous cruelty to animals. So imagine I go online and I say the factory farming industry is evil, it's a threat to the public health, and it gratuitously tortures animals, and it vandalizes family farms and what family farms were designed to do, all of which I believe. There's a potential that someone might hear me and go and bomb a factory farm, even if I don't suggest that. So in every instance where you express an opinion, you're automatically guilty of publishing material where it's likely that it would be viewed by persons who are predisposed to engaging in that crime. It basically circumvents the First Amendment by allowing you to be prosecuted as a conspirator in a hate crime for expressing a view that Democrats judge as racist or white supremacist. Now, as we all know, there are very few views that Democrats won't call racist or white supremacist if they disagree with those views. But to try and have federal legislation that turns you into a conspiracist when your only role in the conspiracy is to express a view that's protected by the First Amendment is remarkably dangerous. And it also raises the question, why is this confined only to white supremacy racism? Why doesn't it apply to anti-Semitic views that motivate anti-Semitic crimes? Or why doesn't it apply to anti-Asian views that can motivate anti-Asian crimes? And for that matter, why doesn't it apply to somebody who goes online and says white people are evil, white people are primitive, white people deserve to be killed, and then someone hears that person and goes and commits crime specifically aimed at white people? It's both the kind of overt racism disguised as anti-racism that we began the show talking about, joined at the hip by an attempt to criminalize speech by turning protected expression of views into a crime. This is a really pernicious bill that's pending. And it also wants to take two Thanks for watching this clip from System Update. Catch our full shows for free, live weekdays at 7 p.m. Eastern on Rumble, and join our locals community at greenwald.locals.com for all of my written journalism, exclusive after-show Q&As, and more.